Meghan, I appreciate you being here with me for the second time on the Social Entrepreneurship and Innovation podcast. You're actually the first repeat guest.
Yes. Oh, I feel so honored, Corey.
Pretty significant milestone. So thank you so much for joining me once again.
Thank you. Although I might have seemed like I was joking, I actually am super honored to be invited back and loved my first appearance and hope that I can add value with my second.
Well, I'm sure you will. And so the first time we spoke, or the last time we spoke, you were the active CEO of Conscious Company Media. And now as we're sitting here later in 2020, I think we spoke maybe late 2019, you have since transitioned from that role onto a new phase of your career, your entrepreneurial journey. And so I'd love if you would mind sharing with me and the listeners a bit as to what you've been up to since the last time that we chatted.
Yeah, of course. I think it's probably around the last time that we chatted. I was just having this nagging feeling, and the heart can be a persistent little friend. I was going to call her a devil, but she's a friend. And I was just feeling called to do something different. I'd been at Conscious Company Media for 6 years. It was my baby. I got to do the whole entrepreneurial journey from starting it in my living room and bootstrapping and going through angel investing, selling the company, staying on as CEO, having a baby while I was being CEO. And I felt like the company was just in a really good position for me to let it go. It's kind of like adopting your child out to a new family. And so it was very, very hard and very painful. And it was a decision that took me 7 months, 8 months to get clear on that I wanted to do it. And I happened to leave right at the beginning of this year. And my last day was March 13th. And then the pandemic hit. And so it's been this crazy time and incubation period where, as an entrepreneur, I don't know how many of your listeners feel this way, but to have a million ideas, and then when you're kind of doing your own thing, you can't quite entertain all the other ideas that you have in your head. And one of the things that I knew I wanted to do was step away from my role as CEO, just to give some other ideas some space to breathe and to see what would happen if I just took some time to really think about what was my next step and what I really wanted to do. And that has kind of emerged in a lot of different arenas. I'm doing online courses. I'm teaching about conscious business, purposeful living. I'm building a leadership academy with 3 other women to really talk about how do you navigate the complexities of race relations in the workplace and how do you become a leader for the future. And so I've just been letting these ideas breathe, these other ideas that I had, and trying to do them while being in a pandemic with a 14-month-old son. And it's just been crazy. So that is a very long answer. Sorry.
No, necessary. A lot has happened in a short amount of time. So, well, I'm wondering what was day one like of no longer being the CEO of Conscious Company? Waking up that day, how did that feel?
It would have been surreal anyway. But literally we were getting the news that there was a global pandemic coming in. And and I guess I'll my last day was on a Friday. I'll take the following Monday when I woke up and didn't go into work. It was, just to be totally honest, it was really freeing. There's a lot of grief, a lot of sadness. I think the thing that I was the most torn up about was leaving my team. I love my team. I still love my team. We still talk all the time. We called each other our work wives. We all just it was a beautiful family there. To leave the team that I worked with, the parent company, that was really hard. There was grief and also freedom and also terror. When you're an entrepreneur, for 6 years, I walked around this earth being known as that thing, as the CEO of Conscious Company Media. I got to do a ton of speaking events. I got to travel around to conferences. I get to go on podcasts. I get to do this thing. identified by my company, and to just like fully walk away from it. Like day one, I think I experienced all of the emotions that humans know how to experience in one day, plus a global pandemic, and we lost our childcare. It was insane. It was insanity. But I think that's one thing that we often don't talk about with transitions, especially with founders and entrepreneurs. And I have a women CEO group that I run, and there's been 5 of us out of 7 who've now transitioned from our first company, and we've all done it in different ways. Forced out, voluntarily left, sold the company and exited. And on the back end, everybody talks about the grief of like the terror of walking into the unknown for the first time, and how many years after you've dedicated so much of your life force to building your first thing, to like walk away from it. It's very unsettling. Untethered is the feeling I felt. Wow, I'm just spilling all the words. You have to, sorry.
I mean,
a bit more.
It feels like kind of heavy, but also very open at the same time. Like exactly what you said, as there's that opportunity to open up some space to what other sort of ideas, thoughts, or curiosities, that had been percolating within you previously, but also all that, the weight of all that experience definitely seemed to have come rushing in. And I mentioned, before we hit record, like I had a transition of myself, CEO of a digital marketing agency, up until transitioning to what I do now, and left that company. And I literally felt like it took me 2.5 years to kind of get sorted as to like, what the hell do I even do with my life? Now, should I even do anything in business? Should I do anything in entrepreneurship? I asked all those questions of myself. A lot of coffee, a lot of walking the dog, a lot of pursuing 1,000 different projects, but like doing them for a day. And so you've made something of a quick turnaround here to take action on some new initiatives and new directions with what you want to do as an entrepreneur. And so I'm curious to hear more about the sorting process for you. So we settle with this experience, the weight of everything that was, and as well some of this freeing sense of the space that you created for yourself. But I'm curious to hear, and it seems like having that, the community, the group of other CEOs that you speak with, it seems so essential. But I'd love to hear more as to what is the processing and the sorting. What did that look like, and maybe what does it continue to look like as you've reoriented on what vision you have for yourself?
Yeah, I'm still in it. Like,
Same.
I left in March, so yeah, there's like 5 months, whatever it might be. And my process is that I try a lot of things. And I get excited about a lot of things. Like when you just said the like getting excited about something for a day and then putting it down, like, oh my God, here's another thing. Like I literally had an invention that I needed to like get patented there.
Oh man.
The like blessing and the curse of being an entrepreneur is the idea machine. Like, and then once you've done a business, then you know how to do it, then all of a sudden it opens up all these other ideas. And so my process thus far, which I don't know if it's worked, like I'm still doing it, and I'm still like kind of, I don't know what I'm doing, but I kind of do, is that I identified like the characteristics that I wanted going forward in my professional life. And they centered around a sense of impact. So doing impactful work, they centered around a sense of abundance. And so things that brought abundance to my life, to friends' life, to my family's life, to community's life, like just how do I generate abundance in some capacity? I centered around ease. Like and I can say this, like I for at least the foreseeable future, I don't want to have to worry about payroll. I don't want employees. I don't want to have to worry about P&L statements. I do not want to have to, like, the stress that you are under as a business owner is acute, and it is so real.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked away knowing that I didn't want to do that, at least for the foreseeable future. Like
Mm-hmm.
I will not engage in that anymore. So it has to have some sort of ease to it, no stress. And it has to be something that I'm like lit on fire. It's fun, it's engaging, it's stimulating, and I'm having fun doing it. So those are kind of like the criteria that I've been using to try on a bunch of different things. And as I before we hit record, I mentioned to you, you know, I've come out of the gate swinging, and like I've got this, and I already have a website up, and I'm doing social media, and I have classes, and there's this thing I'm building over here, and I'm doing all the things. And it, like, I've heard a lot of people say this, like, wow, that was really fast. And I would say, yeah, it was. It was probably a little too fast.
Mm.
And that was also a bit of a force function of like being stuck in the house. It's a pandemic. The idea that I initially had leaving Conscious Company was about an in-person event situation. And so all of a sudden, like a lot of the ideas that I had that I was like maybe going to explore just got axed immediately.
Right.
And so I think there was a general sense of like, well, I need to do something. What could I do that checks all those boxes? And that's what, yeah. And then I did some stuff, and now here we are talking on the phone.
Right. Well, I'd be curious to know, especially as you've, you know, I'm sure you've been leaning on your community as well. 5 of those 7 CEOs have transitioned to new businesses, new ventures. Right in it, you know, your last response there, that quality of sorting through, like, okay, what did I like about these previous experiences? What did I not? You know, and therefore maybe what will stick, and what do I need to, you know, do away with.
Yeah.
And so that exercise seems extremely valuable. Have there been, I guess, for anyone else, you know, listening who may resonate with this kind of transition feeling, has there been anything else that you've been learning from this experience, or, you know, experiences through friends or connections of yours to sort through this, you know, and kind of make this bridge as peaceful, I guess, as it possibly can be, because it surely can be, you know, existentially tumultuous.
Yeah. Good question. I think you saying like you took 2 years to really like take some space and then re-land, like I would recommend building in some space to like grieve and also just process and identify like truly what you want to do next, and have it be from a sense of intentionality rather than scarcity and like, here's what I have to do next, I have to start doing something, if that is something that is afforded to you. You know, I think some of my like, oh, I need to do something immediately was from a sense of just like financial scarcity of like, holy shit, the world is falling apart, the pandemic, like I need to get something up that can provide me with some income just in case I can't figure anything else out in this insane environment. So if anyone, if you're looking to transition, just like building in that space and not assuming that your next thing is going to happen in the next like month or 2 or even 6. One of the women that just transitioned, she took a year and like healed and like went to therapy and got her health right again, because she had just like so burnt herself out. And she spent her whole savings doing it, and now she's like re-landed at a new organization, and but is doing so from like a very centered, well place. So yeah, building in that time. I think the what I just mentioned of like having other people to talk to who are going through a similar transition, and whether that be through a group that you're already in or actively seeking people out who are going through transition. As I've been writing a lot about like that I've transitioned, and here's how I made that decision, and here I, you know, I have my own little blog now, and because I do that, I have people on LinkedIn all the time reaching out to me saying like, can I just talk to you? And I'm like, of course. Like, absolutely. So like reach out to other people who you know are going through it and have conversations. Those would be 2 pieces of advice.
Really good one. I mean, it seems the the definitely the most measured approach was your friend taking the full year to really heal up. I think mine was resistance kind of like the whole way through, to where, I mean, I may have stretched it excessively long because I never fully kind of leaned into it. And I was like, all right, maybe I do need some sense of healing. But no, I resisted for far too long. But anyways, I appreciate you sharing that, because it's not an easy thing to go through. And it's always very challenging to not have that sense of purpose or direction immediately. It's just kind of to be on some sort of hamster wheel or a treadmill, but with no really kind of clear direction as to where to go, especially with the kind of entrepreneurial engine always running in the background, like, you got to do this, and a global pandemic, and a new baby. So wow, that's really adding the list up here. But it seems that you're transitioning quite well. And so I guess to start to touch on some of the very substantive things that you've taken from your experiences with Conscious Company Media. One of the reasons that we wanted to have this chat today is that I'd love to kind of get your expertise and your breadth of knowledge on conscious business as it generally is. So would you mind if we had a little chat about the space of conscious business itself?
Please, yes, let's do it.
Excellent. Well, I'd love to just start very simply with a definition for maybe some of the listeners who themselves could use that. I know I could. Meghan, could you define for us what is conscious business in your own words?
Yeah, and this is something so this is a question that I get asked all of the time, and this was one thing that I started to look at, like ways in which I could move forward. And a very intelligent person in my community said, you could monetize all of that knowledge that's in your head. And I was like, oh, hey, you're right, I could, and create a passive income stream on the side. So that's what I did. I created a Conscious Business 101 workshop where I talk about these. And what was crazy as I created the curriculum for this is that I realized that there's no agreed upon definition of conscious business.
Right.
There are myriad industry groups. There's all sorts of people that talk about this stuff, but there's no agreed upon definition. And so I kind of looked at every single framework and all the things that I could come up with. So this is my own personal definition that I have kind of cherry picked and Frankenstein together. But I believe a conscious business is a business that is led by a conscious leader, takes all stakeholders into account, and has a higher purpose beyond profit. I'm happy to break those things down for you if that's helpful, or we can just leave it there.
But no, please, a bit, if you could say a bit more there.
Yeah, so the kind of conscious leader part, there's a lot of companies out there that have a sustainability department and they're doing great things, but then leadership at the top isn't bought in, isn't aware of their actions, isn't actually acting as a conscious business leader. And there's plenty of examples out there that I'm sure people are aware of, but a conscious leader is someone who actually walks the talk, who it has determined values and actually lives by them, is someone who is conscious and aware of their actions on a daily basis and has the ability to respond thoughtfully rather than react. And so these are kind of the ways in which we defined conscious leadership at Conscious Company Media. And the best conscious leaders that I ever came across, these are the capacities that they held. This would be people like Justin Rosenstein at Asana, Eileen Fisher of Eileen Fisher, Kevin Rutherford of Noon, just fantastic leadership at the conscious business. Then stakeholder into account. This is a big issue. So most businesses on the face of the earth have, well, at least for the last 50 years, I think it's been 50 years, have kind of subscribed to the idea of shareholder supremacy. And this has even gotten to the point where people have said, we have a fiduciary obligation, we have a legal obligation that we have to maximize profits for our shareholders. And as a result of that, businesses have gotten away with murder. This is the reason why we have companies that are like polluting rivers and doing terrible things to their workers, is because they're saying, I actually have a legal obligation to maximize the profit for my shareholder. So this has been replaced in the last kind of 30 years with the idea of a stakeholder. A stakeholder is kind of anyone or anything really that your company's actions affect. So this would be, a stakeholder would be your employees, like they're number one, your customers, the community that you operate in. Yes, your shareholders, your investors are a stakeholder. The environment, you can include the environment as one. So you can make stakeholder maps and say, what are all of the entities, essentially people and entities that our company's actions directly affect? So the definition, conscious leader takes all stakeholders into account. A conscious business really needs to be looking at their effect on every single stakeholder that their company affects and attempting to have a positive impact on those stakeholders, period. And that, well, I said period, it's actually a comma, and have a higher purpose beyond profit. And this is where we talk about the why behind a business. This is about companies like, what's a good example? I mean, Patagonia is like so like the conscious business poster child, but they have it stated explicitly in their purpose, and I wish that I could rattle their purpose off the top of my head. I'm not that good, but it has something to do with like making the highest quality products, and they specifically write in their purpose to make a positive impact on the environment. Like that's in their stated purpose. And yes, they do make money as a result of their purpose, but your purpose as a company cannot just be to make money. So those are kind of the three major components that we look at when we're talking about conscious business. And that I kind of, once I studied it, looked at it, talked to literally over 1,000 business leaders in my time at Conscious Company, which is crazy. That's kind of the definition that I was able to land on myself.
And so, I mean, starting from the top, we mentioned that there's no single definition of conscious business. And so I think along or with that, there comes some misconceptions or maybe misunderstandings as to what it exactly is, and as well what it's not. And so I'd be curious to hear from you. What do you see, especially, I mean, just reflecting now, and as well as your experience at Conscious Company Media? What do you think are some of the greatest misconceptions or misunderstandings about conscious business?
Yeah, I think the number one, and the thing that I see the most often, is that if a company has a sustainability department or a CSR department, corporate social responsibility, that they are in fact then a conscious business. And the way that I just described a conscious business, I think about that as a holistic lens, that every kind of facet of the company is a conscious. When we're talking about a sustainability or a CSR department, that is like a business that is tacked on sustainability onto the side. It's just a department that's just kind of clunked onto the side. And yes, they can do wonderful things. I'm not poo-pooing sustainability departments. They're fantastic. I know wonderful people who run incredible sustainability departments and CSR departments, but it doesn't mean that the company itself is a conscious business. You can be doing incredible things for the environment and treating your employees like crap. Right. You can have wonderful, kind of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and then be maximizing profit to the extent that you're having negative externalities all over the place and doing terrible things to the environment. I mean, there's all these like kind of trade-offs that you can make with sustainability departments. Monsanto has a sustainability department. Like Halliburton has a sustainability department. Right. Like, those are not a conscious business in my wonderful expert opinion.
That seems to be a fair assessment. And so why do you think businesses and business leaders, as well as consumers and citizens, like why are people gravitating to this style of business? I mean, of course, it seems like a no-brainer. It's like, yeah, we would like businesses to be more conscious in which the ways they act within their communities, socially, environmentally. Like that's a no-brainer, obviously. But like, why is it mattering? Why is it mattering maybe more now than it did even maybe 5-6 years ago when you first started Conscious Company, or 10 years earlier than that? Like why is it mattering so much right now?
Yeah, I think there's a few different reasons, and they really do come down to like I get asked a lot, like what's the business case for being a conscious business and why is this important? And there's a few different things. One being your employee base, like employees who are treated well and have a higher purpose at work are more engaged, more innovative, and have higher employee retention. It's also way easier to recruit employees when your company is known. Like there's things like Glassdoor where you can actually look at like how companies treat their employees. And you can also look at the actions that a company has. The millennial generation, of which I am an elder millennial, I will own it. I can say we do not, we're not super interested in working for companies that are degrading the environment and treating employees like crap and adding to the socioeconomic divide around the world. So there's just this kind of employee engagement, innovation, retention, all of it falls under, and like that's like one of the main reasons why I'm like, this stuff is important and you should be paying attention to it. There's also just general diversity adds to levels of innovation that companies have never seen. Like there's all sorts of studies around boards that are fairly, monolithic and have like, or homogenous and have, older white man across all the board, and then studies of boards that have diversity of thought and opinion, and those companies are outperforming homogenous companies tenfold. There's also, come on, brain, we can do this. The book Firms of Endearment. This is written by Raj Sisodia. It's been around for quite some time. I'd say like maybe even 10 years. So he looked at, this is another big point about why this is important. It's customer loyalty. So Firms of Endearment, he looked at companies that people love. And so I'll ask you, Corey, what is a company that you love?
Cotopaxi. I really like Cotopaxi. Yeah.
Like conscious business, 100%. Like when you talk to people about companies that they love, that they will literally pay more money for. One of mine is Southwest Airlines, even though I haven't flown them now for months. I will pay over $100 extra to go on Southwest Airlines because I feel a certain way when I fly with them. It's friendly and inviting, and I know all about their incredible sustainable business practices. There's companies like this, Firms of Endearment. So Raj Sisodia studied them, looked at all the companies that people love. They all are values-driven, purpose-driven businesses, and they outperformed the S&P 500 14 to 1. It's 1,400%. So like performance is there, employee retention there, customer loyalty is there. Like, and I could go on, but these are kind of the main reasons why it is important.
And so, I mean, you mentioned a bit as it relates to maybe more subtly identified qualities, the leadership, as like where's sustainability ingrained into the business? Like, is it within its core, or is it, just this kind of individual department? What are other methods of recognizing out in the world, what are conscious businesses? Like what kind of characteristics, or perhaps certifications, is that something that folks are always interested in? Where do those fall as it relates to conscious businesses?
Yeah, I mean, the gold standard right now is B Corp. So if you see, it's a capital B with a circle around it. Conscious Company Media, we were certified. It is a very rigorous process that looks at the stakeholders that I just mentioned, your environmental impact, your impact on the community, your impact on your workers, the purpose that you're having. I mean, it is a very rigorous assessment. Trust me, I've done it twice now because we did it when our second year in business, we did it. And then you have to recertify if you get bought out, and we got purchased by another company. And so I had to recertify. So we've done it twice now. I think there's almost 2,000 certified B Corps around the world right now. And like, they're the gold standard. If they have a B, like, I know I'm stoked on them. The other ways are like more subtle and harder. And I think that this is where it gets kind of sticky, is because companies are so good at greenwashing.
Yeah.
And this is like where it's like kind of up to the consumer to do a little bit of homework. And if, they might, like, ExxonMobil has like the best sustainability marketing. But if you like dig one layer further and look at like anything else that they're doing. Besides, they literally have commercials about it, about their sustainability, and they're very proud of it. And then, it's oil and gas. Like we have to talk about that. So I don't have like great methodologies, and this is where I feel really frustrated sometimes when I'm out there, because I even get tripped up, and like I studied this stuff for a really long time. But look at their leaders, watch videos of their leaders, look at kind of their social media marketing, what they're putting out as what's important to them. You can look on their website, look for their purpose statement, look at their Glassdoor rating. That's like a super easy low-hanging fruit. You can go tell if a company's treating their employees like crap real easily. And then there's also another great resource is Great Places to Work. I think it's now been changed to Great Places to Work for All. They make a list of companies that are just crushing it in terms of like how they treat the employees and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So there is a long ramble of various ways that may or may not help.
Yeah, the certifications are kind of a good nod, like a quick look, especially when you're out in the world. Certified B Corporation, even other 1% for the Planet community. I like a lot of those folks, and it you can go down the rabbit hole as depending on how much homework you are willing to do. Because if you spend, as I know you have, a lot of time looking and talking with and connecting with companies who are walking the walk 100%, you can start to notice the subtleties between those that are really kind of leaning on, more consumer trends, and it being a marketing type effort versus absolutely legitimate. You start to see those things quite clearly.
Yeah.
So,
and I think the certifications part is like super important, like organic certified, biodynamic certified, fair trade certified, living wage certified. Like you look for those instead of natural.
Yeah.
The company says natural on the products, like it is not a conscious business. So like the third party validation is really important. And yeah, yes, I agree to your point.
Certainly. I mean, and certifications aren't perfect. I mean, I the B Corporation one is seriously rigorous, as we're attempting to complete it ourselves by the end of the year. So we're right in it. But yeah, and I mean, but they are commitments that people are making versus the alternative of not doing it all. So 1% for the planet, even though it's just a monetary commitment, 1% of top line revenue. If companies are doing that, that may be an indicator. Might require some more homework, of course, but might be a good indicator that they are making that commitment as opposed to not doing it all. So that those are really good signals. And then, so just to kind of transition here and bring it together, if this is something a business leader is curious about, what might be some kind of tangible steps that they can take themselves, to more evaluate, or, even an early stage entrepreneur to evaluate or set their business up, to, be in this community of conscious businesses, to walk that walk, to abide by those practices. What are a few things that you might recommend for them to either kind of audit or assess where they're at, or get started heading in the right direction?
Yeah, and even though I was just like, it is so rigorous and time consuming, oh my God, the B Lab impact assessment, it's a free online tool. B Lab is the nonprofit entity that certifies B Corps. It's right on their website, blab.com, I think. But the B Lab impact assessment, you can go through and just kind of get a baseline for things that you should at least be paying attention to. And like, if you haven't set up, it can tell you what to start paying attention to. And then if you're, a year or two in, it can at least give you some feedback on areas where you might be able to improve a little bit. I also just tell people to like steep themselves in this stuff, like read books, read Forms of Endearment, read Conscious Capitalism, read Start With Why, Simon Sinek. I mean, there's so many, like that bookshelf is full of conscious business books. And it's not, one of my friends here in Boulder calls it like woo-woo hippie crap. And I guarantee you it's not. It's like about how to maximize the potential of your business, how to like really spur innovation, how to set your business up for success. So even though they're like about conscious business, they're really about how to make yourself a more resilient business. So I just encourage people to learn about it. I mean, I do have a little workshop on my website, meghanfrenchdunbar.com, where Conscious Business 101 workshop, where I do like a 3-step plan for business owners on how do you actually start working this stuff into your everyday and into your next decision making. So I'll just plug myself because why not? I'll try to think of any other resources, but that's like usually where I tell people to start is the B Lab impact assessment. And then just like as with anything, just start doing your homework.
Mm. And I mean, I would totally agree. I think the impact assessment is kind of a course in itself. I mean, especially if you like, there's been questions that we're like, I don't even know where to start, and so they do luckily provide some good supplementary resources and reading and that kind of stuff. So it is a bit of a 101 to even go through it, to even go through the questions and not actually see how it applies to your business, to just run through it and see what they're asking. I think it has you have an appreciation, especially if it's the first time, to be like, wow, these businesses are taking pretty serious commitments, especially if you then see what the scores mean and look at the directory and see what people have scored.
Yeah.
So it's certainly a good starting point. And of course, books and the community go down the rabbit hole. But Meghan, I really appreciate you taking the time here with me today. Share a little bit about the transition for you, and as well spend some time in this topic of conscious business for us and our listeners here. So any parting pieces of advice or plugs or asks for folks to keep up with you and where the journey is headed?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I had like a big parting thought, but then yes, you can follow me on all the social medias, which I have just started doing. I have a team working with me that's forcing me to put things out. You can go to meghanfrenchdunbar.com, or on all the platforms you can find me there, and it's Meghan spelled with an H, but I'm like the only Meghan French Dunbar in the world because it's a really weird name. But this is something that just came up for me last week, and I don't know when this will air, so it might not be relevant, but I bet it will be. I just, bear with me, Corey. I'm sorry. I'm taking way
No
too long
worries.
with this question, but
No worries.
I
No.
sent out this survey this week to a whole bunch of female business leaders, just trying to aggregate some data on yet another project that I'm working on. And what came back to me is that people are really struggling right now.
Mm.
Like, this is not a normal situation that we find ourselves in, with the pandemic, with the political climate, with the division in the country. Like, this isn't normal. And what came back to me on the survey was that people are like so down right now. Like, everyone is fighting a battle that you know nothing about.
Mm.
And I feel like we've kind of gotten past the point of like acknowledging that this is a weird world and we're all just kind of adapted, and now we're just kind of going through it. And I keep just coming back to like this, like, let's all take a collective deep breath and just like be a little kinder to each
Mm.
other and a little bit more patient and give each other a little bit more grace right now. Cause it's like people are really, really struggling right now, like across all of the facets that we can struggle as humans, with health and finances and our connections with each other. Like, it's, people are struggling, and this survey that I got yesterday just like blew my mind when I looked at this. And so that would just kind of be something that I want to remind people, is just like, be kind,
Mm.
be really compassionate right now. And that's my last thought, Corey.
I think that's a very important note to end on. There is certainly that weight that's just still underneath the surface, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. But thank you, Meghan, once more for taking the time. We'll make sure everything Meghan French Dunbar is linked up at the show notes at growensemble.com.
Thank you, Corey.